Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start with just a few thank yous. Folks, this has been a long time in getting here today, and so there are a number of people in our staff here who've made a big difference in making this bill possible. I'd like to mention specifically Matthew Colley, Cole Trace, Susie Murthan, Matt Pravatsky, nonpartisan staff, Henriette and Anita Newman. I'd like to thank Representative Freiberg for letting me put this name on his bill, which was very generous of you. I'd like to thank Representatives Radinovich, Ward, and Allen for their participation in our committee hearings around the state, and even Representative Kiefer one time. I would like to thank the conferees, Representative Poppy and Representative Metza, for their diligent work in an ultimately fruitless conference committee process that nonetheless yielded, I think, a very, very strong bill. I'd also like to thank the members of this body for their debate today, although I don't think it's really been our finest hour. And Representative Garofalo, Leidiger, Drazkowski, Abler, McDonald, Paul Anderson, McNamara, Doubt, any one of you who thinks that this bill today is about a Senate office building, and that's the motivation for me or anyone else passing this bill today, you are more than welcome to come over here and say that to my face. Please. I don't see anybody rising, because you know that's not what this is about. You know this is about doing the right thing for Minnesota workers. We've also heard a lot of arguments today that ultimately are not very persuasive when you put them up against the facts and the evidence. Representative Anderson, you talked about how you believe in the free market, that we are interfering with what we pay people. People should understand that right now we have a lot of laws governing labor in our state and our nation. We don't let children work. That's an interference with the free market. We say we have a 40-hour work week. That's an interference with the free market. We say that people should have a weekend off. That's an interference with the free market. We say that there should be a wage floor below which no worker should be able to fall. That's an interference with the free market. And that works because it supports all workers. Today, around the country, states are doing the opposite. The governor of Maine proposed weakening their child labor laws. Legislators in Wisconsin tried to go to a 7-hour work week so no employee would have a right to a day off. Legislators in Kentucky are trying to eliminate their state's overtime law. These are choices that we are facing. States can choose which direction they want to go in because the federal government is not moving. We've heard a lot about grocery stores and restaurants, and we've heard a lot about small businesses, and we've heard a lot about border communities and the impacts that this will have in all of these different places. The average wage of a server in Minnesota, including tips, the wage of servers in Minnesota, including tips, is $8.68 an hour. That is not the kind of salary or the kind of wage that calls out for a reduction in their minimum wage. Representative Loon, you talked about job loss. You talked about the top 5. Minnesota is in the top 5 in economic growth. In 2012, Minnesota was number 5. You know what other states were in that top 5? California, Washington, Texas, and North Dakota. Unless you have a plan to discover oil in Minnesota, I suggest we follow the model of the states that are growing, which is to value workers, believe in investment in them, and treating them as assets like Representative Bly talked about. The state of Washington, by the way, has had a minimum wage that's been the highest in the nation since 1998. Since that time, they've seen a 21% increase in their payroll, for restaurants specifically. So for all the concern about restaurants, we see that job growth continues even with states that have a high minimum wage. And Washington was one of the top 5 growing states. Representative McDonald, you talked a little bit about how the GOP has been right about everything for the last 2 years and that we've done everything wrong. And you talked about how, well, maybe this will give a few people a raise. You're really diminishing the real impact of this bill. 357,000 Minnesotans will receive a raise when we go to a $9.50 minimum wage. 80% of those people will be over the age of 20. 288,000 Minnesotans over the age of 20 will get a pay increase. 30% of those people are married. That means that 108,000 Minnesotans who are married are going to get a pay increase under this bill. 20% are parents. 72,000 Minnesota parents are going to get a pay increase under this bill. 43% of those people are working full-time. So 155,000 full-time workers in the state will get a pay increase. 58% of the people who will be affected by this bill have achieved beyond a high school diploma, have at least some college or a college degree. 209,000 people with post-secondary education will get a raise under this bill. 57% are women. 205,000 women will get a pay increase under this bill. 137,000 Minnesota children will see their family's economic condition improve under this bill. The right thing to do, Representative McDonald, is to vote green. We have a choice before us, members, and it's not just on this bill. We have a choice about what kind of direction we want to go in as a state. We can choose to go the low-cost, low-tax, low-wage route, where under the theory that somehow if you lower everybody's wages and lower everybody's pay, we're all going to do better. That's one route. Some states are following it. It's not working out very well. That's the argument we've heard on the other side today. Or we can take a different path. We do not have to accept a race to the bottom. We do not have to be the state that rushes to cut everything back so far that we can say we are the cheapest place to do business, only to see that nobody wants to do business in a cheap place. We don't have to accept concentrating wealth and power into fewer and fewer hands. That is a choice that we have made for too long. We do not need to see wages decline. We don't need to see the middle class hollow out. We don't need to see a state where the contributions of workers are not valued and the workers themselves are considered to be liabilities. That is a choice we do not have to make. And what's most encouraging to me about this whole experience I've had in the last year on this bill is not the work of the legislature. Believe it or not, that is not the highest prize in this whole experience for me. The thing that's most exciting to me is that when the legislature didn't take action last year, there were a whole bunch of citizens who decided that that was not good enough. A coalition formed between organized labor, which I'm proud to say I worked with, between the faith community, and between nonprofits who represent people all over this state. And what they said was, legislature, do your job. Do the right thing. And not only did they show up at the Capitol with lobbyists, which many others are capable of doing, they also made phone calls, they knocked on doors, they brought petitions, they spoke out in churches. The bishop, Representative Lean, you talked about your community and the values of your community, and Representative Drozdkowski said it was naive or foolish. The Lutheran bishop in that area said that we should be raising the minimum wage and we should be indexing it to inflation because it is wrong for people who work to live in poverty. That is the voice of the people that made this possible. And that is ultimately what is most exciting about this, because workers in Minnesota are going to have to stand up for themselves in order to make these changes possible. Do not wait for us. We will follow. In some cases we may lead, but I guarantee you that when workers organize, when workers stand up, when people in Minnesota say that our economy should reflect our values, the legislature, the politicians will follow them. And that's what's happened in the last year. We can choose to value work. If you're a nurse's aide, if you're a child care worker, if you work at a group home or a nursing home, if you're a bartender, if you're a server, if you're a cook, if you're a retail clerk, if you work stocking shelves or helping customers find things, if you're a cleaner, if you clean up Target after the day is over, if you drive people around in a cart at the airport and help them with their bags, if you're an office assistant, a receptionist, if you're a barista, if you work at a nonprofit, if you're a temporary worker who's trying to find permanent employment, a temporary worker could be a secretary, it could be a turkey plant worker. If you are 1/3 of our economy who does the work that we depend on and we count on, this bill will make a difference for you. We believe that work has dignity. I think all Minnesotans believe that all of us deserve the dignity of supporting ourselves and our families through work. This bill will not do that for everyone. Raising the minimum wage is not the final answer to everything that ails our low-wage economy, but it is an important step forward. By raising it to $9.50, by indexing it to inflation, we create a rising floor for all wages in Minnesota that will benefit hundreds of thousands of people. And most important of all, it will allow those people to go on to the next task in front of us, organize the next campaign, take the next action to make our economy reflect our values rather than having our economy reflect our worst fears. Members, vote green for 357,000 Minnesota workers who work hard and deserve to get ahead.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill. We're on the vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 60 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.